What's up, YouTube fans? Today we're going to do a comparison of the FansToys Sovereign 2.0 with the FansToys Sovereign 1.0, both versions of Masterpiece Scale Galvatron. These figures came out quite a few years apart. This happens to be the M version, which I think stands for movie or metallic. I've heard different answers to what it is, but this is a special colored version. The original was more purple. This one's more bluish purple. This one came out in 2019. The original came out in 2016. And this just came out, it's December 2025. So that is, almost 10 years apart from the original and about 6 years apart from this one. So a lot of time has passed between these releases. So I think it's okay that they decided to do a 2.0. I guess they wanted to take another shot at it. Now, as I always mention with these comparisons, I try to be as objective as possible, but of course, there's subjectivity involved, especially when you're comparing the same company. I don't think I've done a comparison where it was the same company, so this will be interesting. With that being said, let's get started with the comparison. We'll start with the accessories. All right, so here are all the accessories they come with. It's quite a bit, actually. They both come with a translucent Canon attachment piece, although the new one actually has a light up feature, whereas the old one didn't. They both come with a blast effect. The new one comes with 2 parts for the blast effect. So I'm just going to count the one against each other for this. Both of them are too heavy though. They both fall out or weigh the arm down enough that it can't hold up. But there you go. Those. They both come with a matrix on a chain. The design is different. The older one is a little bit bigger. It was more like the MP10 matrix. Still had the chain on it. The chain attached in the middle, whereas the new chain attaches on the ends. And then we get these different things. So I'm going to count off the faces first. We get a angry sort of yelling face. And I'll count that off with an angry yelling face from the new one. Then we get a display stand. Now, the new one only comes with this adapter for the display stand. So I'm going to count this stand against the additional blast effect and the display stand adapter, just because it's not a complete stand. And here's what you're left with. You get a bunch more faces with the new one. Even if I counted off a couple of these faces, you get 8 total, which is a lot. So we're going to give accessories over to 2.0. Next, we'll talk about the gimmicks on these two. And there isn't that much in the way of gimmicks. I did talk about the light up feature in the Canon for the 2.0. There's also the swapping gimmick. You can have the blaster on the front or on the side for the Canon in robot mode. So that's another kind of option there for display. The original one, you really can only put it on the side of the arm. There wasn't really an option to display it differently. So I'm going to give gimmicks over to 1.0. All right, next we'll talk about the cartoon accuracy. In order to do that, we'll put the G1 image over here so you can take a look for yourself. And he's always looked a little goofy, the cartoon, just because the legs, they have that bowed out look with the knee pads. And I felt that the original Sovereign 1.0, the legs, because these knee pads were so long, it kind of covered up the thighs. On this one, it's still long, but it comes up a little bit lower. I think the legs are a little bit longer, slightly longer on the new one. So it tends to look a little bit more balanced in the proportions on the legs. That might be a preference thing, but I do think, as far as the cartoon is concerned, the legs on this one look a little bit more accurate. As far as the upper body, the torso, I think the shape of this upper body, because it's got this angular shape here, and the chest protrudes a little bit more, I think this one has a better proportion on the top. But both of them have that overall shape with the pylons on top. Both of them have the shape of the head. I do think this face sculpt, since it's not white, I think the gray actually looks closer to the cartoon. So I would give the face and the overall color of the face to 2.0. But the head shape, I think, is pretty similar. For the Canon, I think in the original, the cannon is actually mounted here. And this one can't do that. This one can. So I think I would give that just the ability to move the cannon here for a cartoon accuracy over to this one. It's really close. Both of them do a great job. When you start coming to the back, though, that's where things start to fall apart for the 1.0. There's a lot more kibble on the sides and the back. So when it comes to sculpt, I got to give it to the 2.0. It's much cleaner on the side and the back of the arms as well. They changed up the way they did these bits for the tracks. So that definitely cleaned them up. So I'm going to give both cartoon accuracy just by hair over to this guy, but sculpt definitely over to 2.0. They definitely cleaned it up. I mean, that was the whole point, right? I guess of this release was to give you a more cartoon accurate version. Next, we'll talk about the paint and the build quality in these two. And for the most part, they are fully painted. There's not really much difference in terms of the amount of paint. And as far as the quality of the paint, they're both nice metallic gloss paint. So I don't really see much in the way of difference there. So I'm going to give them a tie on paint. As far as build quality, same thing there too. Both very similar, not much differences there. So we'll give them a tie on build. All right, now let's take a look at the articulation. In order to do that, we'll articulate each one individually so you can see how they perform. Starting with the 2.0, the head is on a rotating swivel, goes up to there, down to there, and rotates around. Such a beautiful head sculpt too. Shoulders rotate around on a ratchet joint. That could stand to be a little bit tighter. Out to the side on friction on a die-cast hinge. Rotation at the bicep. You have a single jointed elbow, gets you up to there. Rotation at the wrist. You have individually articulated fingers. Oh, the wrist also can hinge in and out. Fingers are individually articulated at 2 pins. And the thumb is on a ball joint and 1 pin. Yes, 1 pin. Nice articulation on those fingers. Coming down to the waist, you have a waist rotation on a ratchet. Ab crunch gets you down to there. We have hip skirts on the side and the back. The front hip skirt will rotate with the leg, get you up to there. Back to there. Out to the side, up to there. Held by friction, works fine. Rotation at the thigh around a universal. You have I guess it's a double jointed knee, but it does collide here. So you get a little past 90. The knee pad does move independently. So you have this on a hinge, this on a ratchet, and then this is on a hinge. So there's only one ratchet joint there, but it does get you past 90. And then coming down the feet, you have ankle tilts to the side. You have a little bit of forward and backward. And that's it for this guy. All right, now we'll take a look at the 1.0. So he also has a rotating swivel. Head goes up to there, down to there, rotates around. Shoulder on a ratchet joint. These ratchets are a little bit stronger. Goes all the way around. Up to the side on a ratchet. Up to about the same height as the other one. Rotation at the bicep. This does swing independently, so if you want to rotate this on its own, you can. It's not really articulation, but I just wanted to mention it. Double jointed elbow versus the single over there, so this is going to get an extra point there. Rotation at the wrist. In and out movement at the wrist. And individually articulated fingers at 3 pins. I said 2 pins on these, but it's actually 3. There's 3 pins for each finger. I'll talk about this in a second. But the thumb is also on a ball joint and a pin. Both of the hands are basically identical in terms of the way they articulate. They just changed them from squared off to rounded on the new ones. Now, I gave build a tie, but I forgot about this. This falls off very easily. It's not the greatest pegging system. This one happens to be, has more paint on it, so it tends to stay a little bit better. But I forgot about that, So I think I am going to factor that in. I'm going to go back and give the build over to this guy just because that's always been an issue for me, is that even on the other versions, that's been an issue. All right, coming out of the waist, I'm going to just leave that off for now. We have a race rotation on a ratchet. No ab crunch on this guy. You have hip skirt on the front and the sides. Legs will kick up to there. The knee pad kind of gets in the way of the articulation. Back to there. Out to the side on friction. Rotation at the thigh at I think it's a cut joint, just the way it's designed. You have a double jointed knee, and that does indeed give you the full bend, and the knee pad moves independently. So that is an extra joint over this one, even though it doesn't have the ab crunch, it does have double jointed knees and elbows. For the feet, you have ankle tilts out to there, forward and backward, and you have a toe tilt independent of the heel. So, kind of to my surprise, the old one actually has a couple additional articulation points, namely the double jointed elbows, the double jointed knees, and the toes and the feet. Whereas this guy, the only thing it has more is the ab crunch, which I appreciate. But I'm going to give articulation over to the 1.0. It actually ends up with more points of articulation. Next, we'll talk about the transformation and engineering on these two. When it comes to the transformation, both of them are not a walk in the park. They have different issues, namely this one, the backpack. There's some funkiness with how to get things looped through and pushed through, and that is some of the frustration with this one. With this one, there's a lot going on with the legs, and just in general, getting it into alt mode. There's a lot of panels and pieces to get it to look the way it looks. It looks great, but because of that, it definitely taxes the transformation. So when it comes to engineering, though, I'm going to give it the 2.0. I think it's so clean in robot mode, especially the backpack and the side. It just doesn't have anything sticking out anywhere. And then same for the alt mode. They really nailed the alt mode, the look of it. So it's very impressive that they're able to get it to do that. So I'm going to give engineering over to the 2.0. I think they just, that was the whole point, right? That's the whole point of the design for 2.0 is to get it to do that. So we'll give them engineering. All right, here they are in their alt modes. And yeah, it is interesting how much nicer this one is just because of the way they've done the legs here. So this is actually the arms of the robot mode, and you can see that the shape isn't quite right especially compared to the cartoon. Also back here, these wing pieces are a lot bigger than the ones on the original, the 1.0. This looks more like it. This fin on the back also a little bit bigger. Here's the back. This one you can adjust up and down. The stock position is like this, facing upwards. This one doesn't really have an adjustment to go up or down, but also the arm's a little bit more stable on the new one. This one kind of it's a little bit fiddly on these. But overall, I think it's pretty clear that the 2.0 is the better alt mode. It just represents the alt mode better, but it also is more stable, better looking. I like the front here, especially this silver part. It just looks nicer. This plastic here was always a little plain. So I'm glad that they have a painted surface here. And I think the arms are better. So we'll give alt mode over to 2.0. All right, next we'll talk about the cost on these two. And as always, I use the prices from ages 3 and up since they don't change their prices, monkey with it after. And this one really surprised me. The Sovereign 2.0 is a whopping $258, almost $260. The Sovereign 1.0 for the 2022 reissue, which is the one they have on their website, that comes in at $236. Using the inflation calculator, that would come out to $261, $262 in today's value. So about the same price, a couple dollars difference. So they're going to get a tie on the cost. It's really surprising that they're going to come out to about the same. And the final factor in this comparison is the members' choice category, where I ask my members which one they prefer just based on their own personal preferences. And 2.0 is going to win the members' choice, not a surprise there. So final thoughts on the comparison. You can see the score. And the 2.0 is going to win this one. And no surprise there. They did put this out as an improvement. They're trying to get better looks and better cleanliness and sculpt. However, I still really like this one. I still like the 1.0 quite a bit. It's got this bulkiness to this heft to it that makes it look intimidating. And even though it didn't win a category because of that, maybe Sculpt could have been it, but it didn't win because it's got the kibble on the backpack. I do think there's something about this look that people really like. It's just bulkier and bigger. Also, if you got the movie version, you've got this one with the kind of darker bluish purple. You may not really need this, right? This does a good job filling in as the MP Galvatron. It's really doesn't need to be replaced, I guess I would say. However, if you want a really accurate, beautifully painted and sculpted Galvatron, then I think you might enjoy this. Me personally, I'm planning to keep both. One is going on the movie shelf. One is going on the season 3 shelf. So it's not really a decision I have to make. I'm just going to keep them both. That's it for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.